Palestinian struggle for liberation is definitive for the left wing. It defines what it means to be on the left. So, today at the Left Library, we will be explaining why Palestine is so important to the left. To understand the scope of the Palestinian struggle, it's essential to look beyond the isolated periods of conflict as mainstream historiography portrays, and view the situation through the lens of continuous dispossession and genocide. Dr. Fayez Saeg, a Palestinian scholar, framed the Nakba not only as a one-time event in 1948, but as the starting point for an ongoing genocide, the Nakba that we will cover in more detail shortly. In his 1965 essay, Zionist Colonialism in Palestine, Saeg emphasized that the Nakba was not the end of violence, but the beginning of a process of incremental genocide. He viewed Israelis' actions as part of a slow genocide, where Palestinians are continually dispossessed of their land and their rights over time, rather than through one cataclysmic event. This contrasts with contemporary accusations of genocide, which often focus on specific military operations, such as those during the ongoing war in Gaza or other incursions into the West Bank. Saeg's Zionist colonialism in Palestine would interpret the current violence as an inherent part of a long-standing colonial project, not a standalone crisis, with the ultimate goal of eliminating the Palestinian presence in their own land. The repeated military actions, whether in 1948, 1967 or today, are all part of a broader continuum aimed at furthering the Zionist project. Saed and others argued that Israel's policies were not about defeating a military opponent, but about transforming the demographic and cultural makeup of Palestine by forcibly removing Palestinians from their land, controlling their movements, and systematically undermining their ability to remain in their homeland. Yet, in the face of ongoing war and occupation, Palestine isn't just a national liberation struggle. It's a front line in the global fight against these intertwined forces of oppression. By bringing together anti-imperialism, anti-colonialism, and class struggle, all core elements of Marxist thought, one can see the roots of the conflict of the fight against military occupation, settler-colonialism, and capitalist exploitation. Palestine represents the intersection of imperialism, colonialism, and capitalist exploitation, the very systems that the left exists to dismantle. Through understanding the conflict as an essential struggle against global systems of oppression, one will see the Palestinian liberation as a defining attribute of the political left. The Israeli occupation and its matrix of control over Palestinian life serves as a microcosm of the broader global imperialist project, where power, land, and labour are extracted for capitalist gain. We will examine both Palestinian Marxist thought alongside traditional Marxist-Leninist theory to explain how Palestine is more than just a national liberation movement. It is a symbol of resistance against the structural violence imposed by imperialism and capitalism. Moreover, we will connect this analysis to the ongoing situation in Palestine, showing how the conflict is part of a broader imperialist strategy designed to dominate the Middle East. Palestine, a symbol of anti-imperialism and anti-colonialism. For the global left, Palestine represents a case of settler-colonialism, supported by Western imperial powers, particularly the United States. This mirrors historical forms of colonialism seen in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Following the Nakba in 1948, 85% of the territory Israel captured, Palestinians found themselves either expelled from or fled from their homes, meaning that 700,000 Palestinians were expelled from their homes in 1948, and 15,000 were killed. The Zionist movement, supported by imperial European powers, established the State of Israel, marking the beginning of a prolonged and ongoing process of colonization. From a Marxist perspective, the creation of Israel fits into Lenin's theory of imperialism, where powerful capitalist nations seek to dominate weaker territories for resources, land, and labour. The Israeli occupation of Palestine, along with the expansion of illegal settlements, is a modern example of this. Palestinian thinkers such as Ghassan Kanafani frame the struggle as an anti-imperialist fight, directly linked to broader global resistance movements against colonial oppression. Kanafani, in his work Returning to Haifa, describes Palestinian resistance as part of the global decolonization effort, where the fight against Israeli occupation mirrors struggles in Algeria, Vietnam, and South Africa. The Palestinian struggle, then, is not just about national liberation, but about dismantling an imperial system that continues to exploit both land and people. Israel's expansionist policies, backed by Western powers, reinforce the global capitalist order, where land seizures, resource extraction, and racial domination serve the interest of international capital. The Nakba, continuous genocide. Many contemporary discussions of Israel's actions use the term genocide to describe the repeated military assaults on Gaza or the West Bank. Palestinian scholars, activists, and Marxists argue that this genocide is not a series of isolated events. The Nakba, so the mass expulsion and destruction of Palestinian society in 1948, did not end. It simply became more systematic and more covert. This ongoing process of erasure is referred to by Palestinian Marxists as a slow or incremental genocide. Israel's actions, whether they are through military strikes, settlement expansion, land confiscation, or the ongoing blockade of Gaza, are designed to slowly displace Palestinians from their land, undermining their existence both physically and economically. While military operations like those happening today capture global headlines, these are only symptoms of a broader strategy that has been unfolding since the 1948 Nakba. Palestinian scholar Noor Masalha, in his book The Expulsion of the Palestinians, explains how the Nakba was not just a tragic event in history, but the start of an ongoing process of settler-colonialism aimed at depopulating Palestine. This interpretation shows that the Nakba and Israeli policies form a temporal continuum, so space and time, one which Palestinians are incrementally subjected to forced displacement, economic exploitation, and eventually erasure. This systematic dispossession links directly to Marx's theory of primitive accumulation, where capitalist societies expropriate land and labour from indigenous populations to create wealth for the ruling class. Israel's control over Palestinian land, resources, and labour fits into this Marxist framework, reinforcing the imperialist capitalist nexus. The Israeli matrix of control, economic exploitation, and fragmentation. Israel's occupation of Palestine is maintained through a system often referred to as the matrix of control, a term that was coined by Israeli scholar Jeff Halper. This matrix is not just military occupation, it's an entire structure of political, economic, and technological domination designed to fragment and control Palestinian society. From a Marxist perspective, this system reflects the economic logic of capitalist imperialism. Palestinian territories are fragmented into disconnected cantons, making economic development almost impossible. The Gaza blockade, the ongoing settlement expansion in the West Bank, and the construction of the separation wall not only isolate Palestinians, but also economically exploit their labour. Palestinian workers are forced into low-wage, precarious labour in Israeli industries, while their agricultural land is confiscated for Israeli settler farms. This economic control directly mirrors Lenin's analysis of imperialism, where colonizers extract wealth from colonized nations by creating conditions of economic dependency. Palestinians, especially in Gaza, live in conditions of economic siege, unable to fully participate in the global economy, thus reinforcing their subjugation to Israeli capital. The Israeli matrix of control is designed to ensure that Palestinians remain economically dependent on Israel, while their resources are extracted and their labour exploited. The Israeli occupation is further entrenched by technological domination. Israel uses sophisticated surveillance technology, including facial recognition, biometric data collection, and drones to monitor and control Palestinian movement. This technological control serves a dual purpose. It suppresses Palestinian resistance, while simultaneously testing security technologies that are then later exported to other authoritarian regimes worldwide. For Marxists, this reflects the fusion of militarization and capitalism in the modern era, where technological innovation is used not only for economic gain, but also for controlling oppressed populations. The use of surveillance to maintain control over Palestinian territories is part of the global surveillance capitalism that allows capitalist states to maintain domination over their own working populations. Palestinian class struggle and neoliberalism. The Palestinian struggle is not only about national liberation, it is also a class struggle. Within Palestine, particularly after the Oslo Accords, a Palestinian bourgeoisie has emerged, benefiting from neoliberal policies that in fact reinforce the occupation. David Harvey, in his work on neoliberalism, argues that the global capitalist system often co-opts or adopts local elites to manage oppressed populations on behalf of the imperial powers. In Palestine, the dynamic is clear. The Palestinian Authority, or PA, has become increasingly reliant on international aid and international or foreign capital, creating a small elite that profits from the occupation. This Palestinian comprador class, as it can be called, is aligned with Israel and global capital, and in fact undermines the national struggle by entrenching economic inequality and collaborating with the very forces that oppress the Palestinian working class. For Palestinian Marxists like George Habash, this internal class division weakens the liberation movement as the working class continues to bear the brunt of Israeli exploitation while the elite benefit from neoliberal collaboration. This mirrors patterns seen in other colonized regions, where imperialism co-opts local elites to maintain control over resources and over labor. So in conclusion, why does Palestine define the left? It's because the Palestinian struggle embodies the fight against the core injustices that the left oppose: imperialism, colonialism, and capitalist exploitation. The ongoing conflict and incremental genocide of the Palestinian people are not isolated or momentary. They're part of a continuous strategy of settler-colonialism that has been unfolding since the Nakba in 1948. By standing with Palestine, the left stands against a global system that thrives on the dispossession of indigenous people, the exploitation of the working class, and the control of resources through military and economic domination. Supporting Palestine is not just an act of solidarity. It is a recognition that the fight for Palestinian liberation is central to the fight for global justice and the dismantling of capitalist imperialism. Until Palestine is free, none of us could be free. Thank you for watching The Left Library. This has been Political Theory Simplified, and we'll see you again.